Next up, Russ and I are going to review The Exorcist in 4K. We're going to be talking about the release, the film, and more. Welcome back to 4K Kings. My name is Matt.
I am Russ.
And welcome to your home of physical media, movie reviews. And Russ, today we are here to talk about the fabled Exorcist. This is coming out, obviously, in 4K Ultra HD from the WB and their 100th anniversary.
Thanks, Criterion.
This had a few Blu-ray releases prior.
I have that as well.
This one. I blind bought this and never watched it. But then I decided to blind buy this.
That blind buy I never watched was so good, I upgraded.
50th anniversary blind buy upgrade. This one sold out. Almost all of them sold out damn near instantly. The special ones, like there was this one, which was the limited edition collector's one. There was a deluxe one that was in like a big purple, like Bible looking box. All the steels sold out nearly instantly. All the collector's edition ones sold out nearly instantly. I did manage to snag this based on, I think, a comment in a forum that said, check out this place, Golden Discs, which is an Irish company. And I ended up getting this and shipped it, and now I have it, and this is how I actually watched it.
I hope you liked the movie after all of this.
It was a lot of trouble.
A lot of build-up. A lot of blind buys and identities stolen.
Yeah. It was a lot of trouble for this movie. It's cursed.
Was involved. Exactly. Yes.
Today we're going to talk about this release, the transfer, the features, the package. We'll do an unboxing. We're also going to do a review of this film, which we're going to do first, and give our thoughts on whether we like this movie, what we do or don't like about it. I just recently saw it for the very first time. Russ has also recently watched it, but not for the first time.
No, I grew up on this movie, and I adored it, and I immediately read the book right after as well.
This is a 1973 film, directed by William Friedkin from the 1971 novel. Friedkin previously directed a couple of things, but mainly French Connection, which is what got him the job in the first place. The person who wrote the book, I guess, knew Friedkin and sent him the book. He was the one that he wanted to direct the film adaptation of his book, but the studio didn't really care for him until French Connection won the Academy Award.
William Friedkin. This is a tremendous honor, and I'm very proud to accept it.
And it also starred at the time a relatively unknown cast with Linda Blair, Ellen Burstyn, Jason Miller, and then my boy Max von Sydow. Sydow?
An actor of international acclaim, Max von Sydow.
Some saying the production was cursed due to delays, illnesses, deaths, and freak accidents. The film went on to be a phenomenon, a lifetime gross of $441 million on a $12 million budget, and the first horror film to be nominated for an Academy Award. And now finally, 50 years later, I'm here to talk. I'm here to talk about it.
That was good.
I'm here to give the definitive thoughts on.
I finally found some time in my schedule.
No other review needed by anyone else. The definitive review is finally here.
Friedkin died, and I was like, well,
I mean,
better late than never.
I don't give a flying fuck into a rolling donut.
Just to say, I did enjoy the film, and I wanna explain why. But it's definitely not something that I'm going to be like, Russ, I hated it. All this build up, and 50 years later, and I fucking hated it. No, I obviously, I did enjoy it. I think my first sort of opening thought is this being out for 50 years. I've seen all of the main imagery that they wish to convey about the exorcism parts, and the horror elements are like embedded in pop culture. It's a thing that we've all grown up with, despite me never seeing the movie. But that being said, this was not the movie I was expecting it was going to be.
Really?
I found that what people brought to The Exorcist is what they took away from it.
I get why it's labeled horror, and I get why it would have definitely been labeled that back when this movie came out. But to me, like watching it, even though there's like an uneasiness to the story and what the movie even is, a lot of the imagery that they've showed over time, I feel like is not a large part of what this movie is. I feel like it's really methodical and takes its time. It almost feels like, to me, a drama with these like violent, graphic, like exclamation points. It's not like trying to get you in and out in 90 minutes. They're really like diving into the characters, the care that's going into figuring out if they're going to do this exorcism or not. The one character's like, there's a whole plot about him and his mom. I watched the theatrical. The director's cut has that spider walk scene, right? One of the reasons why I read that Friedkin cut it was that he felt like, as far as the pacing was concerned, it came too early in the movie. And again, I feel like that's like, he's not trying to lay it on too thick. He's trying to like create a world in which you're uneasy being in it, and you're like kind of gearing up for this like final battle against evil, sort of, without the whole damn movie cramming horrific violence down your throat, which I almost wasn't sure if that's what this was going to be.
All right, let me go off on a few things you just said.
Go off, Russ.
I saw it in the theaters in 2000. It was re-released, and that's when they added the spider walk scene and like a few other little minor moments. And to your point, I think in 2000, it was almost like this film had become old hat. It had become, like you said,
parodied.
We all knew it, parodied to death. So it's like, okay, here's a spider walk scene to get your asses in theaters again. This movie does one of the greatest things any horror movie can do, and it goes into what you just said about the pacing. Psycho does this also. You're right. It's playing it like a drama. Not even a drama. It's dreadful. I mean, it's a horror film, you know? But I get what you're saying, the dramatic elements. Then if you take that spider walk scene out, which you did, you watched theatrical, the first real outburst you see, I want to say is maybe, let's say 45 minutes to an hour in. Reagan masturbating with a crucifix, blood everywhere, grabbing her mother's head, lick me, all this shit, throwing her across the room. And then it goes right back to the drama. That's fucking incredible because what happens, what he did to the audience by doing that, what are you going to do after this?
Yeah.
What?
Right after that, for the next hour leading up to the actual exorcism, you're just sitting there like, holy shit, what the fuck? How's he going to top that? I think this pacing is brilliant and the dramatic stuff works. I've always, to me, one of the most horrific things in this movie, and this is why I think it will always hold up, the effects, the pea soup vomit, all that stuff over time will lose its luster in terms of impact. But what this film does beautifully and what frightens me the most and fucks me up the most, and I did rewatch it recently in the theater, it's the Damien stuff with its Karras, the story with his mother. That shit scared the hell out of me as a kid.
Yeah.
Damien, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
And that guilt of like putting your parent away somewhere in the night and then fucking Reagan sitting there.
Yeah.
Like, Damien,
Yeah,
why are you
using
doing
it.
this?
Why you did to me, Damien?
It's Karras' story of reaffirming his faith.
Yeah.
He's not believing anymore. He's out of it. He doesn't want to be a priest anymore. He doesn't want to do shit. The Exorcist, it is not doubting Christianity. And listen, I'm an atheist. I don't give a shit about religion. I love this fucking movie because it believes in it so hard, which makes me as the viewer believe in the concept.
Yeah.
And it puts me right there. It needs that level of belief for this concept to work. And that's what I think is its brilliance. I remember when we announced this and someone in the comments said, you're not going to like it. And I'm sitting here like, if you don't respect this movie, and I hate being that, I hate when people say this, but this is one where I'll say, if you don't at the very least respect this movie, I do question whether or not you love film.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it.
No, I love you.
Jesus Christ, David Gordon Green and Danny McBride just proved to us all how hard it is to do this. And it's 50 years later.
And they're doing exactly what this movie didn't do. And that's what I'm saying. That's why that movie sucks and this movie doesn't.
And we've never even watched it, and I never will.
I don't give a flying fuck.
The last point I want to make on the tone of this movie, which again is I'm saying is a positive thing. I like the tone of this movie. I love the pacing of it. It was just not what I was expecting. This original art cover doesn't look like this. This doesn't scream like terrifying horror movie. This is like, I'm about to watch some moody shit. And I did watch some moody shit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And as someone I know, that's an iconic cover. I know you've seen it countless times in your life before watching it. Isn't it an awesome cover?
Yeah, it's an awesome moment. Exactly. Yes. And I'm glad that this is the one I got.
How haunting those steps are.
All that to say, the tone I really, really liked. The pacing I really, really liked. The feeling of it I really, really liked. Obvious stuff like the horror elements. I mean, we don't have to dive in too much, but having seen it for the first time, it was very impressive. All the different bigger set pieces that, again, I've seen in pop culture, whether it's the levitation, the head spinning, the vomit, you know, and the great special effects, makeup, all that kind of stuff was awesome. But I will say, and maybe since I'm so new to the party, everyone's going to be like, duh, idiot. The thing that freaked me out the most, like literally made me squirm, wasn't all that exorcism stuff. Like, because that stuff is so unreal, I was like, wow, like it's just such a cool thing that they did. Yeah. But the scene where they do that procedure, the angiography thing, where like they stick the thing in, the blood spurts out, dude, I was like...
During the film, at the point where Linda Blair gets a needle in her neck and the blood squirts out, That's the part where everybody fainted. It was at the medical procedures, not the demon.
This scene is essential because this is another thing I love about this movie. It doesn't just jump right in with every character being like, yep, it's the devil.
Yeah, oh, you got to try it all.
It's like, yeah, she's going to doctors who are having procedures and all that. It's like, we need to see this so that we thoroughly believe, yeah, she's possessed. Friedkin probably added the light and used that as, hey, let's get that blood shooting up.
Dude, it was glistening, that spurt.
It was.
I mean, if you're going to put it in there, let's make it pop.
I decided that we would achieve all of these effects live in the studio, that there would be no use of trick photography, no opticals, but that everything that appears on screen would have been achieved as we photographed it.
I want to talk about Friedkin also. Just hearing his vision in the opening, statement, and then watching it and, researching this a little bit, knowing kind of like what went into the production of this movie, his vision, tenacity, like madness, like I don't know what you want to call it. Basically his willingness to sort of offend, like for the art and for the whole process. I feel like without
his
all that,
Second Amendment rights,
his Second Amendment
firing
rights,
a gun on set to keep everybody on
in line. This is my production.
God damn it. They don't make them like they used to, man.
No, but I mean, without all that, this movie doesn't get made. You don't have this movie without all of those elements that he pushed for, and he pushed everyone to the edge for. Like
Danny McBride firing a gun on the set of this new one.
That production would have got shut down. Not back then. There were no rights. No one had any rights. There was no compromise.
Nobody had rights. This is when movies were good.
No, dude. There was no compromise. He understood the assignment. He went for it, and that's why this movie is as great as it is.
You know what? It's a great story about it. The one dude, he couldn't get the scene right. The guy kept fucking it up, and Friedkin walked up to him, and he was like, you trust me?
And I hit him as hard as I could across the face, and I said, roll it, and he went right into the scene. The shock of it. The shock brought forth the tears, and afterwards he embraced me and thanked me.
They called him Wacky Willie. Not only because of that weird shit, but like obviously, like you mentioned, him firing guns on set to like keep people on edge, and the whole green vomit thing. He told Jason Miller, the actor, that it was going to hit him in the chest, but it hit him in the face so he could get like a genuine reaction. Like that's what I mean. He's like offending everyone. He's like, "This is my movie, bitch."
I don't give a flying fuck.
Listen, there is something to be said about that.
A level of abuse on set.
Ask Shelley Duvall.
Stanley Kubrick, he would get her crazy. He would make her do it again and again and scream and yell at her.
I mean, jokes aside, it sucks, but there is something to be said about when someone's that goddamn passionate, you get passionate output. Dude, rest in peace. My man is a fucking phenomenal filmmaker.
I've seen French Connection, but I haven't seen some of his other ones. But
French Connection's funny too. You ever read some of the stuff behind the scenes in that?
Instead of saying cut, I would say, oh, Jesus Christ. Are you kidding me? I would get his anger to a point where he would finish a take filled with rage and then walk off the set. And that's exactly what I wanted.
Just to tie in with him, the cinematography of this movie, I felt like was excellent. Obviously, all this is his vision and what he wants it to look like. Like sometimes when you watch a movie, it feels like real. But to me, sometimes it's like, I don't know why it feels that way. Like when I'm looking at it, it's like I can't put my finger on what makes this feel like reality. And I feel like when I watch this, they were aiming for like this realism documentary almost like feel. And the one thing that I read as part of like that realism was in a lot of movies, they take off like mirrors from the wall, picture frame, like anything that's going to have like a reflective surface, like in a kitchen, a refrigerator, an oven. Like there can't be any reflective surfaces, otherwise it's going to show. And in this movie, they left all that stuff in there and they lit it without like a ton of lighting that would cause it to reflect more. They were like, basically, we flicked the kitchen switch on and we started shooting because that's what we had to do. Again, that just makes it feel like I'm at that house. Like it doesn't feel like a movie set with all this lighting and even like ominous lighting. He was like, I wasn't trying to make this like a horror movie with like weird abstract lighting in certain scenes. Like,
people need to think back. I mean, especially for a mainstream film, I mean, this was a blockbuster.
Yeah.
And I mean, horror films weren't there yet in 1973, especially in the fucking mainstream. But I mean, like even the genre ones, even the B ones, even the grindhouse ones, that realism was never really an emphasis, I don't feel, before this.
Talk about realism. In a big budget Hollywood film, in the last scene of The Exorcism, they would have CGI cold breath. My man hooked up a refrigerator. That's real breath.
Oh, yeah.
He froze them to death.
It has to be. Of course. It was 70.
Crazy Willie. He froze these people.
Thank you, Willie.
Realism. And then lastly, just to say the performances were all, top notch. Considering, again, at the time, maybe a little bit less known. I mean, Linda Blair, for being a child, she fucking nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Ellen Burstyn, felt for her, genuinely sad. And even Jason Miller, he's brooding.
He's great in it. I love him in this.
Oh God, he was so
The
good.
older I get, it's more to me about Jason Miller than it is anything else. There's only one thing I could potentially nitpick.
Okay.
And I want to hear if you think this at a first time viewing at our age. Do you think the opening scene is necessary?
The Iraq or the excavation scene?
I don't know. And I understand we're introducing him so that we know who he is later.
Yeah.
But I was kind of thinking
It seems like a book carryover that it may be a scene he really liked from the book.
Yes.
Could we have introduced him in a different way? He could have just been the badass guy that comes from out of nowhere to help.
Let me give you another funny ass Crazy Willie story.
Willie Friedkin said, "Get on the plane, bitch. We're going to Iraq."
Dude, they shot it in Iraq.
Blatty set the opening in Iraq, so I went to Iraq. Everyone told me there's no way you'd ever be able to film in Iraq because even then, the U.S. had no diplomatic relations with Iraq.
Hey, Warner Brothers, fucking Iraq. You could have shot this on a back lot. You could have shot this fucking anywhere. I adore Friedkin.
He took chances. He took chances with people's life.
Chances, man. He did. He took penitentiary chances, man.
I already want to watch it again, and I feel it's a movie that I will, as I revisit it, like it more and more in different ways. If I had one nitpick out of all the great things that I said, I would say it needs more Tubular Bells. I really wanted Tubular Bells to be in there a lot more. And I'll say this, I'm a huge fan. It's so funny. I brought up Pure Moods to you earlier. I bring up Pure Moods at least once a month. Pure Moods is my favorite world music compilation that has all these ethereal, straight Enya, that kind of shit.
Experience Pure Moods, the perfect soundtrack for your way of life. Set adrift with the timeless pleasures of Tubular Bells.
Tubular Bells is on there, and I've listened to Tubular Bells hundreds of times.
Really?
Oh my God. Every time I listen to Pure Moods, which is a lot, Tubular Bells is in the rotation. The part they use is creepy as fuck, but then that song becomes very beautiful and triumphant, and it's not Exorcist at all.
Even the recordings I've heard, it's only been that bell part.
Oh, there's this really big crescendo. It's really nice.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it changes the whole vibe. In conclusion, Russ, let's wrap this son of a bitch up. I loved it, by the way.
Good.
This released the day after Christmas in 1973. The highest grossing Christmas week of all time until Titanic. It ran for 105 weeks. That's a 2-year movie.
That just speaks to how big of a cultural moment this movie was.
I always love Roger Ebert's quotes. He always gives good quotes. He basically said, look, I love this movie, but I don't know why anyone would want to watch this movie. That is basically what he said. He's like, what kind of torture do we need to put ourselves through? Why do we need to see this? But 5 out of 5. Well, it spawned Exorcist 2, Exorcist 3.
Exorcist 3 is solid. You should watch that now. And it carries over. There's characters from this in Exorcist 3.
Is that movie in the file?
It is not in the file. It is not.
Then 2 prequels. And now an upcoming sequel trilogy. I had no idea. Why does David Gordon Green have to have trilogies of everything? Can he just give it up after one effing movie? And then our boy, Crazy Willie Friedkin, he went on to direct Cruisin', Blue Chips, To Live and Die in L.A., and Killer Joe. And then actually Linda Blair, she kept acting TV, movies here and there, but I think the highlight of her career was Meeting You.
He put all kinds of goo in my hair.
We've gushed enough. Let's talk about this release. The people are dying to know what's going on here. 50th anniversary, WB, bringing it back. 4K, Ultra HD, all kinds of editions. These are the editions that we got. Hardback that you can only get in the UK. Impossible to get now. I got this luckily from Golden Discs in Ireland. Thank you, Golden Discs. It's a pretty standard affair as far as these types of editions go. You have this hard box. I like that it's a steelbook inside. Sometimes a regular case goes in these. Steelbook, classy touch. And then there's this sort of, packet here with all the paper stuff. A bunch of different cards, Crazy Willie playing on the set. And then it comes with the booklet that I believe came in here, or a very similar one. It also comes with a poster, front and back poster. One side's purple, one side's black and white. The purple, and then the black and white. So yeah, so I mean, as far as like packaging goes, it's pretty standard affair, but it's nice nonetheless. I'm really glad again that it came with a steel book. That's really all I wanted. I guess I'm glad that I have that. The thing that kind of pissed me off, I'm not gonna lie, it came with a J card on it, and then when I peeled it off because it's stuck on here with glue, not only did it leave a residue that I can't get out, but it also pulled up the pack. Like, can you see in the reflection there? Like, look at the reflection right there.
Yeah.
Like, it pulled it up. It pulled it up there and in 2 spots on the front. The transfer, you know, I've read so many things about the color timings changing over the years from what was in the theater to what went on DVD and then Blu-ray, and now here we are back in 4K. And a lot of it has to do with a blue versus a green, I guess, tint. Yeah. The Blu-ray apparently had more of that bluish hint and versus like more natural tones, which I don't know if people are now used to over time or have railed against. I don't know. But it sounds like, again, I have no frame of reference. This is the first thing I watched, and I thought it looked great. But I guess based on what I'm reading is that they're kind of dialing back that bluish a little bit, but it's still kind of there. It's not 100% removed. It's crisp. It's got the right level of like detail and grain and so forth. But that there's certain scenes that just kind of like don't look as great as people would have hoped. But in general, it's great to see what this format is still capable of. This doesn't come with a Blu-ray, and that's where all the legacy features are. So you're going to have to hold on to whatever you had before, which is kind of a drag. Again, I have no frame of reference, but I listened to the Atmos track, and I thought sound-wise, it was like enveloping. I felt like as far as the transfer is concerned, as far as the package is concerned, and the film's concerned, this is probably one of the best of the year.
This is a tremendous honor.
If you liked what we had to say here about The Exorcist, if you disagree with what we had to say, if you've never even heard of The Exorcist, if you're like me and still haven't even seen it, get yourself out there and check this out for the very first time like I did this year. Don't wait any longer. Don't wait 50 more years.
Turn down the lights, turn up the sound, and enjoy the digitally remastered version of The Exorcist.